You missed your train by exactly 4 minutes, and you stood on that platform cursing your own carelessness, watching the taillights disappear into the gray Ohio morning, having no idea that this small, forgettable failure was about to become the most important thing that had ever happened to you. You had done the same walk to the station for 11 years. Coffee first, then the newspaper folded under your arm, then the short walk past the hardware store and the diner that never changed its menu, and finally the platform, where you always stood in the same spot, third bench from the ticket booth, waiting for the 7:38 into the city to see your daughter and her 2 boys. You liked the sameness of it. After your wife passed, sameness was the only thing that kept the days from collapsing in on themselves. But that morning, your knee had locked up, getting out of bed, and by the time you'd worked the stiffness out of it, the platform clock read 7:41, and the train was already a memory. You sat down on the bench, irritated with yourself. In that quiet, private way older men get, irritated, the kind that doesn't show on the face, but sits heavy in the chest. The next train wasn't for 51 minutes. You had nowhere else to be and nothing else to do. So you settled in, pulled your coat tighter against the wind coming off the tracks, and that was when you noticed her. She was sitting 2 benches down, and she had been crying, though she was trying very hard to hide it, dabbing at her eyes with the folded tissue that had clearly been used more than once. That morning, she wore a wool coat, the color of rust, old, but well kept, the kind of coat a woman buys once and wears for 20 years, because it still fits and still feels like her in her lap. Held with both hands like something that might shatter if she loosened her grip, was a small tin box, the kind that used to hold hard candy, dented at one corner, its paint long faded. You almost didn't say anything. You are not a man who inserts himself into strangers' grief, but something in the way she kept glancing at you, then away, then back again made you, finally, lean forward and ask if she was all right. She looked up at you, and for a moment her whole face changed, not softened, startled, like she had seen something she wasn't prepared to see. "I'm sorry," she said, her voice thin and papery. "You just have his eyes." It gave me a fright. You told her it was all right, that you got that a lot, though you hadn't. Not really, in years. She didn't seem to hear you. She was still staring, and her hands had begun to tremble against the tin box in her lap. "Whose eyes?" you asked, more out of politeness than curiosity. "My brother's," she said. "Wendell." You felt something small and strange move through your chest at the name, though you couldn't have said why. It wasn't a name you knew, and yet it landed somewhere. She introduced herself as Odessa Fairweather, and you gave her your name in return. And for a few minutes you simply sat together in the ordinary silence of 2 strangers on a train platform, the kind of silence that usually ends when one person's train arrives and they nod goodbye and forget each other by lunchtime. But her train came and went, and she didn't move. And yours came and went 10 minutes after that, and you didn't move either, because by then she had opened the tin box, and what was inside had already begun to unravel. Something in you that you hadn't known was tangled. Inside the box was a photograph, brittle at the edges, of a young man in a soldier's uniform, standing in front of a white farmhouse with a crooked porch, and a dog sitting at his feet. Odessa held it out to you with both hands, the way you'd offer something sacred. "That's Wendell," she said. "My older brother, taken the week before he shipped out to Korea. 1951. He never came home. Or that's what we were always told." You studied the photograph, and something about the porch, the crooked slant of it, the dog, tugged at a memory so old and so buried, you hadn't thought about it in decades. Your grandmother's house, the house you'd visited exactly twice as a small boy, before she passed, and the property was sold off to strangers, before your family stopped talking about that side entirely, the way families sometimes do when there's a wound too old to reopen and too deep to heal. "I think I know that house," you said quietly. Odessa's whole body went still. "That's not possible," she whispered. "That farm has been gone for 70 years. nobody remembers that farm. My grandmother lived there, you said. I only went twice. I was maybe 6. There was a dog. I remember there was a dog. Odessa's hands had begun to shake so badly that she had to set the tin box down on the bench between you. Her breath had gone short and uneven, and for a moment, you thought you might need to call someone, get her water, find help. But she wasn't in distress. She was in disbelief. What was your grandmother's name? She asked, and her voice had dropped to almost nothing. Adelaide, you said. Adelaide Fairburn. Though I always heard she remarried after the war and the name changed. I never knew her maiden name. Nobody in my family talked about that side. My mother always said there'd been some kind of falling out, something to do with a brother who died in the war, and it was too painful to bring up, so we never did. Odessa put her hand over her mouth, and when she spoke again, her words came out, broken in pieces, the way truth sometimes does when it has been buried too long and is unearthed too fast. Adelaide was my sister, she said. My sister-in-law, Wendell's wife. She was carrying his child when he shipped out. We got the telegram 8 months later. Killed in action. She never got over it. None of us did. But the baby, Odessa stopped, pressed the tissue hard against her mouth, tried again. The baby was stillborn. That's what we were told. That's what the whole family believed for 70 years. Adelaide left not long after, moved away or married, and we never heard from her again. The grief was too much for everyone. Nobody asked questions. Nobody wanted to reopen it. You sat there on that bench with the wind moving through the empty tracks, feeling the platform tilt slightly beneath you, though nothing had physically moved at all. My mother was born in 1952, you said slowly, hearing your own voice as though it belonged to someone else. She always said she never knew her real father, that he died before she was born. She never talked about it much. I always thought it was just an old, sad story. I never thought. Odessa was crying now, openly. The kind of crying that comes not from sorrow, but from something breaking open after being sealed shut for half a century. The baby didn't die, she said. The baby lived. And somehow, somewhere along the way, our family was told the opposite. And Adelaide was in so much pain she never corrected it. Or maybe she never even knew what the hospital had told the rest of us. I have spent 40 years trying to find any trace of that child, any record, any name. I hired people. I wrote letters. I visited archives in 3 states. I always believed, in some small foolish corner of my heart, that Wendell's line hadn't ended with him. And I was starting to think I'd die without ever knowing. You realized, sitting there, that the tremor in your own hands now matched hers. My mother's name was June, you said. June Fairburn, before she married. Odessa made a sound then that you will remember for the rest of your life. A sound that was not quite a sob and not quite a laugh, but something in between, something that comes only once or twice in a person's lifetime, when the impossible turns out to have been true all along. June, she repeated, like she was tasting the word after decades of not being allowed to say it. My niece was named June. Neither of you moved from that platform for the next 3 hours. Trains came, trains left. You let every single one of them go. Odessa told you about Wendell, how he'd wanted to be a schoolteacher before the war took that future from him, how he used to carve small wooden animals for the children in town and leave them on porches without saying who they were from, how the whole community had grieved him like family, because that was the kind of man he'd been, the kind whose absence left a hole shaped exactly like him. She told you that the farmhouse dog in the photograph was named Huckleberry, and that Wendell had walked 3 miles in the snow once to bring medicine to a neighbor's sick child, refusing any payment, saying that was simply what you did for people. You told her about your mother, about the quiet sadness that had always lived somewhere behind her eyes, a sadness she never fully explained, about how she used to hum an old hymn while she worked in the garden, a hymn you later learned from Odessa that very afternoon had been Wendell's favorite, one he used to sing walking home from church. Your mother had never known where that hymn came from. She had simply always known it, The way you sometimes know things that were given to you before you had words for them. By the time the sun had shifted fully overhead, Odessa reached into the tin box one final time and pulled out a small brass ring, tarnished with age, engraved with initials worn nearly smooth. This was his, she said. WFUFU'd he had it made before he shipped out. Adelaide sent it back to the family after she remarried. Said she couldn't bear to keep it, that it hurt too much to look at. I have carried it in this box for 50 years, waiting for someone who deserved to have it. I always believed somehow that if I just kept carrying it, I would find them. I just didn't think I'd find them on a train platform on a Tuesday morning because a man had a stiff knee. She placed the ring in your palm, and it felt heavier than brass should feel. Heavier than an object of that size had any right to be, because it was not just metal you were holding. It was 70 years of a family's unspoken grief finally being set down. You did not go into the city that day. You did not see your daughter or your grandsons. Instead, you and Odessa sat together until the evening light turned gold across the tracks, and you learned that you had cousins you never knew existed. Second cousins scattered across 4 states, a whole branch of a family tree that had been quietly severed by a hospital's mistake, and a grief too large for anyone to question at the time. You learned that Wendell was buried in a small cemetery 2 counties over, a grave that Odessa had visited every single year on the anniversary of his death, sometimes alone, sometimes with flowers, always with the hope, however faint, that one day she would bring someone else with her. 3 weeks later, you stood in that cemetery for the first time, the frost still silvering the grass in the early morning, and you laid your hand against a headstone that read Wendell Fairburn, beloved son and brother, 1929 to 1951. Odessa stood beside you, her arm looped through yours, and for the first time since you'd sat down on that bench, neither of you needed to say anything at all. You think back sometimes to that morning, to the stiff knee and the missed train, and the 50 minutes you thought you had wasted. You think about how close you came to catching that first train. How, if you had been even 4 minutes faster, you would have been sitting in a train car somewhere north of the station while Odessa sat alone on that platform with her tin box, and the two of you would have passed within 100 feet of each other and never known it, would have gone on living your separate lives, believing what you had always believed, never knowing the truth was sitting so close it could have reached out and touched you. You used to think delays were simply life going wrong, small failures, inconveniences to be endured and forgotten. Now, you understand them differently. Now you understand that sometimes the thing that feels like a mistake is not a mistake at all, but a door being held open just long enough for you to walk through it, even if you don't yet know what's waiting on the other side. Odessa is in her 90s now, and you visit her every week, and she still keeps that tin box on the table beside her chair, though it holds different things now. Photographs of your children, of your grandchildren, of a family tree finally whole again after 70 years of silence. Sometimes, when you sit with her in the evenings, she tells you stories about Wendell that she has never told anyone else. Small ones, the kind that don't matter to history, but matter enormously to a family, and you write them down so they won't be lost again, the way they almost were the first time. And sometimes, when the house is quiet and Odessa has gone to bed, you take out that small brass ring and hold it in your palm, and you think about how an entire lifetime of unanswered questions can be settled in the space of one missed train. How the people we are searching for are sometimes closer than we could ever imagine, waiting on a bench, just a few feet away, holding a small tin box, hoping that today might finally be the day. You have stopped setting your alarm quite so early these days. You have stopped rushing quite so hard to catch the first train, because now you know, a way you never could have known before, that sometimes the most important moment of your life is not the one you race toward, but the one that finally catches up to you when you slow down just enough to let it.
If this story touched your heart, share it with someone who needs a little hope today. Subscribe for more stories like this one. because every family has a story worth telling. Thank you for watching, and I will see you in the next story.